So it appears that Donald Trump and his legal team have decided upon a strategy on how to defeat these new indictments once it comes time for the trial. Their strategy, in addition to trying to say that Trump totally believed that all these things happened, they're also going to argue that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for his speech, and that the entire indictment is nothing more than a violation of Donald Trump's First Amendment rights. That is what his lawyers have said this week. That is what conservative politicians have said. That is what conservative pundits have said. They are all attempting to frame this as some kind of attack on Donald Trump's freedom of speech. And they want to walk into court and tell a jury that, hey, the only thing my client is guilty of is talking. And that's legal. You can't arrest him for talking. If that is the legal strategy that Donald Trump's lawyers want to pull out when they get into court, then this is going to be a very quick trial, and it's going to result in Donald Trump being convicted on all charges and possibly spending the next 55 years in prison. Because that might be one of the dumbest criminal defenses I've ever heard. Even Donald Trump's handpicked former Attorney General William Barr came out this week and talked about how stupid that defense is, because Donald Trump is not being prosecuted for his speech. He's being prosecuted for his actions. Now, I explained it this way on the Ring of Fire podcast this week, but I'll go ahead and explain it this way here. If I were sitting around with a group of my friends and I said, guys, wouldn't it be awesome if we robbed a bank? Like, wouldn't that solve all of our financial problems if we just had like the big pile of money that the bank is hiding? So yeah, it'd be totally cool if we robbed a bank. And if I stop the conversation right there and it doesn't go any further whatsoever, you can't arrest me for that. But if I take that conversation a step further and I continue having that conversation with you every day for months, and then it gets to the point where I tell you this, all right, listen, I've befriended some of the employees at the bank. So I'm going to call them and I'm going to ask them if they will shut off their security footage, shut off all the security cameras, all the laser grids, all that, shut them off at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. So then at 9:05, we will show up at the bank and we will go in and rob it. They're going to leave the doors unlocked for us, easy peasy. They're going to do all the hard work. We just have to go in and get the money. If I do that and I start making these phone calls to my friends at the bank, telling them this is what you do, here's the plan, here's the time, at that point, it becomes a conspiracy, and that is 100% illegal. That is effectively, according to the indictment, what Donald Trump and his co-conspirators did. Because they weren't just out there talking about voter fraud and saying, oh, I wish we could overturn the election. They were making the phone calls. They were making the phone calls during the actual Capitol riot. They were calling lawmakers, telling them, you got to delay the certification, delay, which is one of the charges, obstructing an official proceeding. So you made the calls, you had the plan to do it. They also, prior to January 6th, were calling secretaries of state. They were calling other allies in swing states, telling them, you got to send an alternate slate of electors. Right? That's the same as me making the call. You got to shut off the security cameras. They made the calls. They had an actual concrete plan as to what they were going to do. Now, just because those other individuals, the ones they were making phone calls to, even if they don't go along with it, that doesn't change the charges. Because the phone call itself, the request and the plan, that's the conspiracy. So this is not an attack on Donald Trump's freedom of speech. It is a prosecution for a conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government. But if Trump's lawyers want to go into court and argue that this is a First Amendment case, best of luck with that. I hope your client's ready to spend the rest of his life in jail. Ring of Fire has fresh content 7 days a week, so if you want to be reminded about it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell to be notified every time a new video goes up.